Hi there, in this video we are going to set up our documents so that we can start redrawing this cute little sheriff penguin using all our shapes. So we're going to create a new document, show you how to bring in and use layers to lock this pencil drawing in the background so that we can redraw over the top of it. All right, let's get started. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document to draw our penguin on. Let's go to File, let's go to New. Now in here, we've got a bunch of presets. Okay, along the top here, you've got like if you want to design a mobile phone, kind of a website, we're going to start with print. Okay, and in here, we're going to pick letter. And along here, we're going to change our units to inches. We're going to make it landscape. And what you'll find is yours is probably twirled up down the bottom here. See where it says advanced options, click on that word and this little extra option opens up. Okay, and we'll change our color mode to RGB. Now we're not going to cover the full differences between RGB and CMYK, but just so you know, if you're new, RGB gives you a bigger color field, okay, more richer colors. CMYK is a little bit more washed out. But if you're going to eventually become a commercial illustrator or commercial designer using Illustrator, you probably need to research a little bit more the differences between the two. But the short version is just use RGB. Even if you're going to commercial print, printers have some amazing software to convert it to RGB, which they need, and often it can give you a better result. So RGB, perfect for pretty much all circumstances these days. Let's click Create. All right, next thing we're going to do is save our document. So next up, let's go to File and let's save our document. And what I want to do is, now if you're on a Mac like I am, okay, you might have to click this little arrow to see a few more of the options here. Okay, if you're on a PC, things are very similar but a little different. Okay, now depending on your ability, you might just save it onto your desktop and just leave it at that. What I'm going to do is be very organized and click on New Folder, and I'm going to put it into here called Class Files. Okay, I'm going to put a folder on my desktop called Class Files. I'm going to call this one my Penguin. Not even sure if that's how you spell penguin. Looks good enough for me. So if you're on a PC, it's slightly different. I think there's just an icon along the top here that says like new folder, hover above them. Create a new folder called Class Files, name our document Penguin, and let's click Save. Okay, these Illustrator options, just leave them all by default and click OK. So to get started, what we've got is I've hand-drawn our penguin and we're going to redraw over the top of it. And it's a really common way that I work and a lot of illustrators work is that it's easier to draw on my notebook, take a photo of it or a scan and actually just draw over the top of it in Illustrator. It's not how everyone works. You can go straight into Illustrator, but it's going to give us at least a template to draw over the top of, just to make it a bit easier for us now. So to make that happen, let's go to File and let's go to Place. Place is the word, it's interchangeable with import. Illustrator likes to call it place though. So File, Place, we'll bring in our image. Let's find the exercise files that you've downloaded. And in there should be one called penguin.jpg. Now before you click Place, what we're going to do is click on this word template. I'll show you what it does. Let's make sure template is clicked. Let's click Place. And what ends up happening is with my black arrow, if I click off in the background, can you see I can't move this image? So what it does is it brings it in, it puts it on its own layer, it locks that layer and dims it down a little bit so it's easier to draw over the top of. Now mine's put it in the middle of this document. Yours is probably off to the side here a little bit. So let's look at kind of unlocking that layer and moving it around. So up here in your layers panel, layer 1 is where we're going to do our drawing. This layer here called template, you can kind of see template penguin. What it's done is it's created a layer and it's locked it. Okay, so it means I can't move it around, which is super handy. But let's say I want to move it over a little bit. Let's click on the locking icon, click on this now. Now, okay, using my black arrow, just clicking and dragging the center anywhere. Okay, now it's unlocked. Okay, so hopefully you can see the benefits of using that template. I can lock it again now, go back to my layer 1. Okay, make sure it is highlighted and I can do my drawing on that layer. And this helpful little layer is just underneath, dimmed down a little bit, the opacity is down a little bit, and it's locked, making it easy to draw. All right, so that's it for setting up our document, just getting it ready for drawing over the top of. What we'll do in the next video is that we'll start drawing with our shapes, okay, lines and rectangles to make our cute little penguin that for some unknown reason is a sheriff, mainly because I needed to show you how to draw a star. But let's do that in the next video. Hi there, in this video we are going to redraw this pencil penguin, okay, over the top using shapes and lines using Illustrator. We'll turn them off and yeah, it's a short little squat penguin. But look how happy he is. All right, let's get started. All right, to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our rectangle tool over here in my toolbar. If you can't see the rectangle tool, it might be that if you click and hold this kind of where this option might be, it might be set to something like the ellipse tool. And to change it back to the rectangle tool, all you do is click, hold until these options appear. And then just click on the rectangle tool. And also to get started, just make sure you're on your layers panel and make sure you're on layer 1. In your properties panel, I want to make sure we're going to change our fill and stroke. The fill is the center color of our rectangle and the stroke is the line around the outside. So what you do is you click on this first little icon, doesn't matter what color it is currently, pick a random color, okay? And because we're going to change it in a second, but I just wanted you to get used to it. Then you can click back on this icon to close it back up. And in the stroke, click on this and just make sure it's set to black. Then click, you don't actually have to click back on this, you can just click anywhere and it closes back down. And I want to make sure that the stroke is set to 1 point, okay? It's just a nice thin line that goes around the outside. So let's draw a random rectangle. Don't worry if it doesn't kind of line up. We're going to use it for the body of our penguin. So you can see the fill is the center color and the stroke is the line around the outside. What you might see is this kind of like faint blue line or a red line, depending on your computer. What it means is it just means it's got it selected. So if we go about black arrow, this is your kind of like safety tool. Always go back to your black arrow if you're not too sure what to do. You know, you've got all these selected, just go back to the black arrow. It's the one you're going to use the most. And what you can do is click in the background here. So I just clicked once and it deselected our rectangle. And you can see the stroke around the outside a lot clearer. So it just goes blue when we have it selected. So what I'd like to do is I like to keep the black line, but not the fill. To do it, you have to have it selected. So black arrow, click it in the middle anywhere. And over here, click on fill, and to have none, see this little red line here? If you hover above it, it tells you, but that means I want nothing in there, please. And I'm just gonna click in the background to close that little fill panel. Great, so I've got a line around the outside, but no fill. And what you'll notice is it's a little bit different to select. So if I click in the background now, what happens is if I click the center, you can see it just doesn't work like it did when it was filled with green, because there is no center now. So if I wanna select this rectangle now, I've got to click the edge once. So black arrow, click the edge and it should be selected. Now what I'd like to do is using these white squares, okay, I just want you to resize it, okay, so that it kind of matches the edges of our little penguin here. All right, not very exciting. Let's get into slightly more exciting when we start looking at the corners. So black arrow, make sure the edge of it's selected. You see these little targets in the corners. These are called corner options. And all they do is click, hold, and drag it with your mouse. Just drag it towards the center of the rectangle. Cool, huh? So that's making all the corners nice and rounded. Okay, so that's kind of what I want. It's got the top, but not the bottom. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this thing called edit, and we're gonna use undo. It just goes back one step. Okay, undo to undo what you did. Okay, and it keeps going back. You can keep hitting undo right back to the beginning of the document. You can also redo it. Now I'm gonna use the shortcuts throughout this course because it's a really common thing to do, go to undo. And on my Mac, it's Command Z. On a PC, it should be Control Z. Okay, or you can just go up to that long way, it's fine. What I'd like to do is I would like to have just one of the corners selected. So look at this little icon here, take note of the color. If I click it once, you can see it's kind of changed, it's inverted. So it's kind of selected when the other ones are not. What I mean by that is if you click and drag that one now, okay, so you click it once and then click and drag it, you can see it just affects that one. I can do the same here, click him once, he goes to the alternate color. Now I click and drag him, okay, I can kind of just work with these individual corners. Now my radius is a little bit different on both sides. So what I'd like to do is go to edit, undo again. So it's back to being a square and I'm going to show you how to click both of them. So you select the first one like we did before, just click it once with the black arrow. But if you hold your shift key down on your keyboard, shift key is going to play a pretty big part in Illustrator. Okay, so hold down shift, click on the second one. It means that I can select more than one at a time. So these guys at the bottom aren't selected, these guys at the top. If I grab one of them, click, hold, drag it, they both come along for the ride. Now I know they match. And a last minute change to my design, I'm going to click this bottom one once and just tuck it up. I wanted to have like a little bit of a penguin belly. He was a bit stumpy before, he's still stumpy. But anyway, you don't have to follow exactly. So we learned what fill and stroke is. Strokes around the outside, fills in the middle, and we looked at these corner options. Let's start building some other parts. Let's draw the circle for his kind of eye there. So click, hold, keep holding down your mouse and then release on this ellipse tool. So with the ellipse tool, what we're going to do is click and drag over here. And what you'll notice is I can click and drag any sort of size. So that's fine, can't have any sort of weird size. I'm going to undo a few times. What I'd like to do is I want it to be a perfect circle. Okay, that shift is a really kind of usable tool. So when I start dragging out, if I hold down the shift key while I'm doing it, you can see it locks the height and width. And that's true of rectangles or stars, polygons, circles. Okay, so I'm going to get it to roughly the right size. I'm going to grab my black arrow. I'm going to click either the edge, or if you can see this dot here, grab the dot. Okay, little center. If you've got it the wrong size, okay, say it's just still too big, and you try to line it up, and you're like, it's kind of close. Okay, what you can do is you can resize it. Just like we did before, is that I can grab any of these little guys in the corner. The trouble with resizing it this way is you can see I'm kind of distorting the shape. So what I want to do is, before I do it, so I've undone a couple of times, is if I hold the Shift key and grab any of the corners, doesn't matter which corner it is, okay, it will lock the height and width, like we did when we created the circle. Okay, so holding Shift just kind of locks the height and width until I get to a rough size. Now my circle's not perfect, okay, so don't worry too much about it. Another thing you can do here is if you're finding that you're trying to line it up and it's like jumping all around, okay, get it close to where you want it. And then with your keyboard, so I got my black arrow, look down at your keyboard, you've got your up, down, left, right, your cursors. Okay, so I'm just using my cursor arrow keys just to kind of tap it around a little bit. Okay, a little bit left, a little bit up. That often can be a nicer way just to kind of do fine adjustments in Illustrator. All right, let's do this little upside down curve and make some the happy, content penguin. But he seen Pingu? Anyway, here's my inspiration for this one. So what we're gonna do is I could draw a curve. There's lots of ways of doing curves. There's this really easy way though, is if you click and hold down, so hold down the line segment tool, there's an arc tool. Okay, so with the arc tool, just draw it anywhere out here. It doesn't really matter too much which way it goes because we can rotate it. So do it so it's kind of a nice curve-ish. And what I'd like to do is go back to my black arrow. Remember, this is our default go back to it tool. And it does so many things. We used it to resize the circle a second ago. We can also use it to rotate. Now, what we need to do is we need to zoom in a little bit. So who remembers what the shortcut was? You remember, right? It's Command plus on a Mac, or Control plus on a PC. So just zoom in a little bit. I'm going to show you why in a second. To rotate this thing, we need to be in a kind of a special zone. So when we were resizing it before, remember we held Shift and we dragged this up and down to make it kind of bigger and smaller? The rotation's very close. So clicking on the corner and dragging resizes it. But watch this, if I move my cursor just a bit further out into this kind of like, so too close? Nope. Perfect, too far. Perfect, too far. This is kind of like every corner has this kind of like rotation zone in it. And you'll wiggle your mouse around and hopefully find it. You're looking for that kind of bent arrow. And if you click, hold, and drag there, just click, hold, drag your mouse, it'll start moving it around. Okay, and just kind of find it again, drag it around until it's kind of a curve that you could use for an eye. Now I want to move down a little bit. I could use these little sliders, they're fine. What's the shortcut? You remember, spacebar, click, hold, and drag. Okay, and just move it down, and mine's way too big, so I'm holding Shift. Just kind of rotating it around a bit. Don't worry if it's not the right perfect curve. We're gonna show you different ways of doing it in a second, but yeah, it's close enough. Drag it in the corner. Using my arrow keys just to line it up perfectly. So to draw nice, good-looking curves, you can use the arc tool. You can rotate it by that little special area kind of just outside the scaling part. Okay, just out a bit further, that's rotation. Next thing we'll look at is we'll look at the stroke. This stroke, if I click off in the background, it's pretty thin. I want it to kind of be nice and thick in the inside here because it's a bit more of a design feature. So I'm going to select it once with my black arrow. And over here, okay, where it says stroke, I'm going to use this little up arrow. You can drop this down and pick one, or you can just use the up arrow just to click and pick a size. I'm going to pick 4 point. For no good reason, just looks thick enough. And that looks fine. I'm going to click off in the background, and I've got this kind of like rainbow kind of shaped thing. What I'd like it to do is I'm going to eventually round all these corners, just the theme I'm going for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick. If you click on the stroke here, we're going to look at what's called capping. Capping is the end here. Can you see it's a straight line? I would like it to be like a little bulbous end. Okay, so I'm going to click on it once. Over here, our stroke, we don't have many options, all right? We have color and we have the size of it. But if you click on the word stroke, ta-da, there's all sorts of nerdy stuff in there. Okay, so what we're going to do in this case is, it's called the capping, the unfortunately named butt cap, and then there's this second one, the round cap. Click on that. We will keep straight face, right? Butt cap. The second one, round cap, is kind of what we want, right? It's kind of this nice, more gentle end on it. Okay, this one here, the last one, I don't use projecting cap, kind of just the butt cap versus projecting cap. You can kind of see what it does. It puts it like a square on the outside, but I'm gonna use a rounded cap. That can really help you later on when you're working with Illustrator and you've got some really like ugly edges or ends of strokes. just switching them to rounded cap can like finish them off nicely. We'll look at stroke a little bit more in another video, but that's it for now. Let's click off from the background, click off, happy smiley, content penguin. All right, next up, we'll do some triangles. So I want to do the beak. I want to do the flipper, his wing, I don't know, penguins, and his tail. So they're all kind of triangles with rounded edges. So to do a triangle is you hold down the ellipse tool or the rectangle tool, and you're going to move to this one called the polygon tool. So a triangle is essentially a polygon, just a three-sided one. By default, you're going to get a pentagon. I don't know. I'm not sure what that one is, but I'm going to delete it using my delete key on my keyboard. What I want to do is just click once instead of dragging out, and it gives you the polygon options. So I've got the polygon tool selected, and I just click once on my screen, and it gives you some options before you start drawing. And I'm going to pick 3 sides, please. Not going to worry about the radius for the moment. I'm going to resize it once I'm done. So 3 sides, click OK, and I get this kind of giant triangle. So first up, let's resize it and rotate it. So I'm going to use my black arrow, make sure it's selected by clicking the edge of it. I'm going to make sure it has no fill, make sure it has a black stroke, and I'm not too worried about the size of it just yet. So to resize it and rotate it, resizing, remember, is just grabbing this corner bit here and just getting it down to a size. Rotating it is that magical area around the outside. Now what you might want to do is, at the moment when you're rotating, it just kind of goes around in random degrees. If you hold shift, remember that magical tool? Okay, hold down the shift key on your keyboard and you start rotating it. Can you see it does it in 45-degree increments? You might want your nose to be that sort of shaped. So clicking either the center or the edge, move it around, get it into position, resize it, rotate it around so you've got a nose. It doesn't have to be the same as my nose. I wanted mine to be flat on the bottom. So I'm going to try and rotate it using the magical rotation. Make sure it's big enough. Get it to overlap quite a bit in the back here. Okay, I'll show you why in a second. Arrow keys just to tab it down. Drag it so it overlaps a bit more. Why? Because I want to change the kind of a roundness on the end. Okay, so I'm going to grab this little corner option, the little target there, and drag it in. Maybe make it a bit bigger. Drag that corner in. You can see it down to all sides. You could do our secret trick, remember, where you click on it once and just do it individually, but it's a little bit easier just to hide these in here. We're going to make both the nose black and his little body black. So I want to reuse this. I'm going to have it selected, okay, with my black arrow, and go to edit, copy, edit, paste, okay, and I'm going to put this down here. There you go. Messing about. That looks like a good flipper to me. Copy and paste it again. I am going to rotate it around. I just use Command C and Command V on a Mac. You can use Control C and Control V on a PC. There we go. Now you'll notice I'm trying to line it up down the bottom here. It does some clever stuff where it tries to like automatically line up. If yours is not doing that, it's called Smart Guides. It's under View, and you can see my Smart Guides is turned on. It's got a little tick next to it. Okay, it just means it tries to line things up automatically for you, and that's super handy. It can also be a bit of a pain as well. So you can go to View and untick it if you're not liking all that jumping around lining up stuff. Some people don't. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is this body. I should have done it earlier, again, when we had the rectangle tool, but I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. I'm going to hover. You can kind of see it says path. That just means I'm going to start bang on the edge of his body here. It's really handy. It's one of those smart guides. Okay, I'm going to say click, hold, and drag. I get my rectangle. Don't worry too much about the stroke around the outside. And remember, black arrow. I'm going to grab this guy, click him once, drag him down to match. And same with this one. I'm going to click him and drag him up to match my... That's probably why I didn't do the little belly earlier on. I'm just adding more kind of things that could go wrong for us. So I'm going to try and line it up. Actually, I'm going to bring it... Yeah. Oh, here you go. Perfect. That's why I didn't do it. So I've got the body. Let's do the feet as well. So I'm going to do the foot with the rectangle tool. Grab just that corner with my black arrow. I don't actually have to go to my black arrow. It's just a good habit to get into. Click on it once, drag it down. What I'm going to do is copy and paste them. So Command C, Command V, two of them. And I'm going to try and line them up. It's pretty good at lining them up depending on which corner you grab it. So you'll notice that if I grab the center here, oh, it intersects. Very good. Nice. He's got 2 little feet at the bottom. All right, let's look at a couple of the other drawing tools. We're going to use just the regular old straight line. Okay, the line segment tool. It's a fancy word for just drawing a line. And all you do is click, hold, and drag. Okay, click, hold, and drag. Those are two little, I'm not even sure what they are, little feathers out the back of his head. But what I'd like to do as well is change the width of this. Okay, I'm going to match maybe this. So I'm going to remember it was 4 point, I think we used for that. And we changed the capping. Okay, so what I want to do is do both at the same time. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Undo until it was kind of back to the same shape it was. So like we did with the corner options, we can select more than one at a time. And it's that same key. So I have my black arrow, I have the first one selected, then I hold down Shift and click in the middle of the second one. So I have both of them selected at the same time. Now over here in stroke, I'm going to say I'd like you to be 4 point, and under stroke, I'd like to change from that one to that one. All right, let's look at the last kind of new thing I want to show you. We'll draw the rectangles and stuff for the water and the weeds, but this one here, why did you get a sheriff badge is it's only purely so I could show you how to draw a star and a polygon. Okay, you know how to draw a polygon probably. Okay, click, hold the rectangle tool. We saw it before, polygon. And it remembers the last setting. So the last time we used it, we said be 3 sides. So it's kind of defaulting to that now. So what we're going to do is remember just click once out here, put it back to what it was, which was 5 sides. Click OK, and we get our pentagon, I think. Octagon? No, pentagon. I want to lock in pentagon. Okay, and I magically got mine the right size. If you don't, remember, grab the edges here, hold down Shift while you're dragging those edges. It will lock the height and width, and just kind of move it in by grabbing the edges. Okay, here we go. If it's the wrong fill and the wrong stroke with it selected, you can go and change the fill to none and the stroke there. Let's do our star. So the star is there's an actual star tool. So click and hold down this little kind of shape group and grab the star tool. And if you click, hold, and drag out, you'll get just a regular star. To adjust the star, I'm going to undo it, click once, and you can decide on how many points it has and how pointy they are. Just mess around with the different radiuses to experiment with it. It's hard to describe. But mine was fine the way it was. I'm going to leave everything by itself. I'm going to cancel and just draw out a star. Now to lock it into like a perfect kind of horizontal and vertical, hold Shift. Remember that magical tool. When in doubt, probably hold down Shift. Grab the black arrow, click, hold, and drag, get it close, hold down Shift, grab one of the corners, drag it out. We're getting good at this, right? All right, what I'd like to do is make sure that it will try its very best to align these perfectly. Okay, if you're like, I know it's not aligned perfectly, so what you can do is select both of them. Remember our trick, have the star selected. Which key do you hold down? That's right, Shift key. Click the center of this pentagon. And what you'll see over the side here is that you've got your align options. So I want to make sure they're aligned horizontally and vertically center. And they are perfect already. I'm going to move mine off, hold Shift, grab both of them just to show you what it actually does. No, they are perfectly centered. So I'm just going to kind of move mine way off so it makes it a bit more clearer what we're doing. So I'm going to make sure it's horizontally center and vertically center. I can never remember which is which, so I just click both. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it. I've got them both selected. And I'm going to hold down Shift key. I want them to be a lot smaller. So spacebar to move along. Grab one of the edges. Hold down Shift to get it to kind of a, I don't know, sheriff badge size. All right, last couple of things we're going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can put in, that is meant to be the ground and that is meant to be the water, if you weren't sure. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and I'm going to get close to this edge, and it's going to go, wow. That happens all the time where you kind of just get close to it and Illustrator kind of, I don't know, you get lost this way. So I've got this giant rectangle. To get back, okay, we can go to View and just go to the one that says Fit All in Window. Kind of gets you back to home base. Command 0 on your keyboard. Okay, on a Mac, or Control 0 on your keyboard is a really common shortcut to do the same thing. Otherwise, just go to View and go to the one that says Fit Up or to Window or Fit All to Window. Okay, we'll get back to here. I'm going to delete with my keyboard or go to Undo to get rid of the giant rectangle. And I'm going to draw one that kind of goes just to the edges here. Another one. And I'm going to draw in my circles. And I'm going to cheat a little bit with the circles. I'm going to draw a circle, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste it instead of drawing lots of them. And then resize them. It's not even cheating. It takes just as long. Maybe even just easier drawing them. Holding shift maybe to get a perfect circle. Yeah, okay, that first way is easier. All right, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some color. Well, actually, forgot the tuft of grass. I'm just gonna use remember the arc tool. So here you go, arc tool. It's gonna be a bit of rotation going on. So maybe not. That'll do. Beautiful. All right, we're gonna come back and look at strokes in a bit more detail to maybe give these a little bit more prettiness, but for the moment, that's gonna do for me. What I'd like to do is add some fill colors, because at the moment he's, I don't know, weird shapes and sizes. So we're gonna have to work our way through adding fills, messing with strokes, resizing strokes, grouping, arranging, and we'll do all of that in the very next video. All right, I'll see you there.